Hey guys, this is number 12 through 23 of the Algebra 1 Readiness packet that we worked on in class. So for number 12, we have a line passes through the points -4, -18, and 0, 2, which is an equation of the line. Now when you're trying to find the equation of a line, that is y equals mx plus b, where m represents the slope and b represents the y-intercept. So in order to know which one of these is the correct equation, we can first figure out the slope. As a reminder, slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So here are my points. So we first have to subtract the y values. Now I like to draw an arrow going across to remind me that I need to go in that direction. You can also go in the other direction, as long as when you're finding your slope, you're always consistent in the direction that you're going. So first it's the y's, so -18 minus 2 over, now the x's, -4 minus 0. -18 minus 2 is -20. -4 minus 0 is -4. So my slope, -20 divided by -4, is 5. So my equation would read y equals 5x plus b, which I don't know. But that's okay, because if you look at all of these answers, the only one that has a slope of 5 would be D. Let's go to number 13. Which of the following best describes the data shown on the scatter plot? So you see, you have all of these points here. We have this line. The line is going up. Therefore, when you see that a line is going up, that means that the slope has to be positive. If the line is going down, the slope is negative. If there is no line and the dots are all over the place, then there would be no association. But since it's going up, that means positive, so the only one here would be A. This is a positive association. For number 14, we have -7 over 10 divided by 4 over 5. When you're dividing fractions, just remember to copy, change, flip. Or some of you may know it as keep, change, flip. Same thing. So we're going to keep this first fraction, -7 over 10, change to multiplication, and then flip. This fraction, we flip it. So instead of 4 over 5, we're going to use 5 over 4. Now to multiply fractions, you multiply straight across. Numerator with numerator, denominator with denominator. -7 times 5 is -35. And 10 times 4 is 40. If you look here, none of these match our answer. And that's because we have to simplify. And by simplifying, you look at what number can I divide both 35 and 40. 35 and 40 can both be divided by 5. So I have negative, because my answer will be negative. 35 divided by 5 is 7, and 40 divided by 5 is 8. So -7 over 8. Moving on to number 15. Which linear function has the greatest rate of change? If you ever see those words, rate of change, you would write slope. That's what they're talking about. So we have various lines here in different representations. We have a graph, we have a table, and we have two equations. To figure out the slope from a graph, pick any 2 points on the graph. I'm going to pick 0, 0, and 2, 500. We can find the slope. Remember that slope is not just the formula, you can also think about it as rise over run. So to get from this point to this point, I'm going to draw like a little triangle. The rise here is 500. Because that's what the axis is going by. It's going by every 2 lines is 500. And it's going up, so that would be a positive 500. Then the run, every 2 lines in the x-axis is 2. So this is 500 divided by 2. So we can work that out. 2 goes into 5 2 times to give me 4. 5 minus 4 is 1. Bring down the 0. 2 goes into 10 5 times. And when we subtract, we get 0. But there's one more other 0, so we bring that down. And 2 goes into 0 0 times. So my slope here for this one, I'll write it here on the side, is 250. Now we're going to do the same thing here, but with the chart. To find our slope using a chart, we're going to use our formula. You can pick any of the 2 points, because these are points. Here's the x and here's the y, so these are the coordinates. You can choose whichever 2 you want. So I'm going to use the first and the second. So remember, go in the same direction. It does not matter. I'm going to go this way. 100, because it's the y's on the top. 100 minus 600 over negative 2 minus 0. 100 minus 600 is negative 500. And negative 2 minus 0 is negative 2. First of all, a negative over a negative will make it positive. So 500 over 2, which is the same one that we got here. So the slope for this line is also 250. Now look at C and D. These are both in the format y equals mx plus b. M is always the number that's attached to the x. So my slope for this one, m, is 1 over 250. Now I don't need to divide this to know that it's less than 250, because this is like saying 1 divided by 250, which will give you a really, really small decimal. So it can't be C, because it's not going to have the greatest rate of change. For D, 756 divided by 3, this is my slope. If I divide this, remember the numerator goes inside the house. 3 goes into 7 2 times to give you 6. 7 minus 6 is 1. Bring down the 5. 3 goes into 15 5 times. 5 times 3 is 15. We get 0. And now we bring down the 6. 3 goes into 6 2 times to give you 6. So there's no remainder. So my slope for D is going to equal to 252, which is more than 250. So this is the one that has the greatest rate of change. For 16, which is closest in value to the square root of 42? So whenever you have a square root of a number that you can't figure out, let's start finding some square roots that we know. Let's start with square root of 25. Remember that a square root is any 2 identical numbers that would multiply to give you the middle, which is 25. And those 2 identical numbers is 5. That's because 5 times 5 is 25. Then there's the square root of 36. 6 times 6 gives you 36. So this square root is equal to 6. Then there's the square root of 49. 7 times 7 gives you 49, so that answer is 7. 42 is somewhere in here, in between 36 and 49. Therefore, the answer will be somewhere in between 6 and 7, which would be about 6.5. For this next one, how many solutions does the system of equations have? 4x plus 5y is equal to 6, and 5y plus 4x is equal to 8. A system of equations represent lines. These are two lines. And the solution is where they intersect. So think about like visually, if you have a line like this and a line like this would be one solution. Lines can only cross one time. So whatever you would get here, that would be your answer. Now you can also have parallel lines. Parallel lines never touch, so they would never intersect. So this means no solution. Then there may be a time where you have a line on top of another line. If your two lines land on top of each other, then that means that they are always intersecting. They're always on top of each other. So this would be infinite solutions. So how can we tell how many solutions we have? We would first need to take our equations and write them, since these are lines, in that format y equals mx plus b. I look at my options. One solution, two solutions, but there's no such thing as two solutions for lines, so I'm going to cross that out. Infinite solutions and no solutions. So first we're going to take this equation, both of them, and we're going to rewrite it as y equals mx plus b. Let's start with the first equation. We have 4x plus 5y is equal to 6. I need to get the y by itself, so I'm going to subtract the 4x. That would give me 5y is equal, now the equation of a line, the x part goes first. So I'm going to put the minus 4x first. And since the x is positive, I'm going to put plus 6. Then I'm going to divide the 5 so that the y is all alone. And whatever you do to the left side of the equation, you have to do to everything on the right side of the equation. So the equation of the first line is y equals negative 4 over 5x plus 6 over 5. We're going to leave that like that for now. Let's do the other equation. The second equation, this one, is 5y plus 4x is equal to 8. So we're going to solve for y. So first we need to subtract the 4x, because remember, we're trying to get the y all by itself. So we need to move everything to the other side so we can get that y alone. So we have 5y is equal to negative 4x, and the 8 is positive, so plus 8. Then we divide everything by 5. So this is my second equation. Y equals negative 4 over 5x plus 8. If you look at your two equations, they look almost the same, but the y-intercepts here are not the same. So if your two lines look identical, then it would be the same line, so infinite solutions. But that's not what's going on here, so it's not this. If they have different slopes, then they would intersect. But they don't have different slopes, they have the exact same slope. And that is parallel lines. Parallel lines have exactly the same slope. So that means that this has no solution. Let's go to number 18. The table shows the total number of cars washed during a track team fundraiser. The slope of the line of best fit for the data is approximately 8. So that represents the slope. What does the 8 represent in terms of the context? So when you look at your table here, when you're given tables, typically the first column represents the x and the second column represents the y's. Slope is the rise, which is the y's, divided by the run, which is the x's. So let's write out what this represents. The y's are the total number of cars washed. The x's represent the hour. So when you think about slope, the slope is read for the units as the total number of cars washed every hour. So it's kind of like if you think of speed limit. You know how speed limit is usually given like, let's say 60 miles per hour. That's what this is. That's a slope. Total number of cars washed per hour. So let's look at these options. The track team washed 8 cars in the first hour. No, it has to be every hour or per hour, so it's not A. The track team washes about 8 cars each hour. That's the same thing as saying 8 cars per hour, 8 cars every hour. So your answer would be B. But if you look at the others just in case, C says each hour the track team washes about 8 more cars than they did in the previous hour. That doesn't make sense, because if they started with 1 car, then they would wash 9 cars, and then they would wash more than 8, so 17 more cars, and that does not represent a constant change. For lines, every hour would be the same number of cars. Then for D, the track team washes cars for 8 hours. No, because it's cars every hour, so no. So B. For number 19, a circular pool has an area of approximately 154 square feet. So this is area of the circle. To the nearest foot, how much fencing is needed to completely surround the pool? So let's start with what is area of a circle? Area is equal to pi times the radius of the circle squared. And this area, they tell us, is equal to 154 feet squared. We want to find out how much fencing is needed to surround the pool. So here's the difference. This is area, everything inside. What they're asking is just how much is needed to surround it. So just this outer rim. This is perimeter. Which perimeter, if you had like a rectangle or something, you would just add up all of the sides. But for a circle, perimeter is also called the circumference. Now the circumference, I'm going to call it C, is equal to 2 times pi times the radius of the circle. I don't know what the radius of the circle is, so I don't know how much fencing will be needed. So I'm going to use this equation to figure out what the radius is by solving for r. So we have pi r squared is equal to 154. Pi is just a number, so I'm going to divide by pi. Now this would most likely be a calculator question. So I'm going to show you with the calculator what is 154 divided by pi, which we know is approximately 3.14. And I get 49.04, which is approximately 49. So the radius squared is going to equal to 49. To cancel out an exponent, you have to apply the radical, or the square root. Remember that this is radius squared. So to cancel out the 2, it's square root. So I'm square rooting both sides. And I get that the radius is equal to 7, since the square root of 49 is 7. Now we need to plug this in. So 2 times pi is equal to, times the radius, which we got to be 7. I'm going to multiply this now in my calculator. 2 times 3.14 times 7. And I get 43.96. So it's asking me here to the nearest foot. This rounded to the nearest whole number is 44. So that is my answer. Let's go to number 20. Which expression is equivalent to the given expression? We have 9 times 10 to the 6 divided by 1 times 10 to the negative 8 plus 3 times 10 to the negative 8. Let's work on simplifying this denominator here. When you're adding two numbers that are written in scientific notation, the exponents have to be the same, which here they are. Once your exponents are the same, you're going to add the numbers that are given. 1 plus 3 is 4. And then you're going to keep the times 10 to the negative 8. So the numerator did not change. We have 9 times 10 to the 6 over 4 times 10 to the negative 8. When you're dividing, you are going to divide in pieces. So we're going to first do 9 divided by 4. So let's work that out. 9 divided by 4. 4 goes into 9 2 times to give me 8. 9 minus 8 is 1. Now I can't have a remainder, so we're going to put a decimal here, and whatever you put the decimal, you have to put it on top as well. Then I'm going to add a 0. Now I'm going to bring down the 0. 4 goes into 10 2 times, also to give you 8. 10 minus 8 is 2. I still have a number, a remainder, so I'm going to add another 0. And I'm going to bring it down. 4 goes into 20 5 times. So 9 divided by 4 is 2.25. That eliminates B and D. Now we have to figure out which of these is the correct exponent. So we're going to do this part now. 10 over 6 divided by 10 to the negative 8. Both of these have the same base. If they have the same base, you can apply rules of exponents. Rules of exponents say that if you are dividing, you will subtract those exponents. Always the top minus the bottom. So 10 raised to the 6 minus negative 8. Minus a negative turns into a positive. So this is going to equal to 10 to the 14. So now let's put this all together. 9 divided by 4 is 2.25 times 10 to the 6 divided by 10 to the negative 8 is 10 to the 14. Giving me the answer, A. 21. Which of the following functions are linear? If a function is linear, that means that it has a constant rate of change, which means slope. So that means that from one point to the next, it's going to either increase or decrease by the same exact number. 9 to 36, I'm going to do my subtraction here, gives me 27. So to get from 9 to 36, I would have to add 27. To get from 36 to 81, I'm going to subtract to see what that difference is. To borrow 1 from this 8. 11 minus 6 is 5. 7 minus 3 is 4. It's 45. This is not the same number. So it's for sure not option A or C, because it includes A. Let's try B. To get from 8 to 16 is 8. To get from 16 to 24 is 8. From 24 to 32 is 8. And from 32 to 40 is 8. Notice how these are all the same number. This must be linear. So only function B. So B. Number 22. The hypotenuse of a right triangle has length 50 centimeters. One leg has a length of 20 centimeters. to the nearest tenth, what is the length of the other leg? So a right triangle looks like this, where one of the angles is 90 degrees. The hypotenuse, which is 50, is always the longest side of your triangle, which is always across from the 90 degrees, or as you can see, it's diagonal. So this is 50. These here, the ones that connect to the 90 degrees, those are the legs. And we have here that one of the legs is 20 centimeters. You can put the 20 in this leg or in this leg, it does not matter. Whenever you're trying to solve for a missing side of a right triangle, you are going to use the Pythagorean theorem. And the Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. What you plug in for a and b are the legs. C is where you put the hypotenuse. It does not matter where you decide to put the leg numbers. A or B, you can change them up, doesn't matter. But C always has to be the hypotenuse. So 20 is a leg, you can put it for A or B. I'll put it for A. So that's 20 squared plus B squared, that's what I don't know, I want to figure that out, is equal to the hypotenuse, which is 50 squared. 20 squared is 20 times 20, which is 400. 50 squared is 50 times 50. So what I do is I do the 5 times 5, which is 25, and then there's 2 zeros, so 2,500. Now we need to solve for b. So we want to get that b alone. So I'm going to start by subtracting the 400. And I get b squared is equal to 2,100. Now we square root to cancel out that exponent. So that way I get the side length for b. This is something you would do with your calculator. So here is my square root symbol in light blue. If your calculator has a square root symbol in a different color, look for the button in that color. In my case, it's this button here. So I press that first, and then I press that button that's underneath the blue square root. And see how it pops up. And then I put 2,100, and I get as my answer 45.82 whatever. So 45.83. Which my answer here would be the 45.8. Last one, which describes all the intervals on which the function is not decreasing. So we're just looking for when over here we can cross out all of the ones that are decreasing. 1 is going down, so that's decreasing. 2 is not decreasing. 3 is going up, so that's increasing. And then 4 is going down, which is decreasing. So the intervals in which the function is not decreasing are 2 and 3. So the answer would be B. And that's numbers 12 through 23.